Thank you very much, Margaret, for that introduction. It's great to be back in Ottawa, however briefly. Sue and Nick and I just drove in just before this, and we're leaving soon after, but the times that I'm here are always short but really meaningful. I'm going to be reading, as Margaret said, from the Long Exposure Project, and in fact that red dress from the passage that she read shows up in some of this material as well. Because it is a book-length poem, it's sometimes difficult to excerpt from for readings, and there are a lot of different subjects going on in the larger work, some of which have yet to be discovered and written. But what I've done for this particular excerpt is drawn together, again, passages that center on New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. One sort of recurring motif that shows up in this material is Google Street View. I found it a really fascinating research tool in terms of looking at some of the locations that Polidori photographed to see what's there now. But now keeps shifting because, of course, they renew Google Street View periodically. So that comes into the poem. And also, Polidori, when he went to take these photographs, he took them in the 6 months after the hurricane, basically of houses that were condemned, that were in most cases going to be torn down. So there was no one in any of the rooms that he photographed, and there was a lot of mold that was growing on the walls, which in fact caused him to have to suffer from asthma that still plagues him. So there were not only emotional repercussions, but physical repercussions to going to take these photographs. So I've called this section of excerpts The Address. The red dress a crescendo off-center, a Southern Comfort poster, a cloud of feathers on a wheelchair. Someone hung a mirror, someone bought a shoe tree. Someone did not go to the French Quarter unless visitors were visiting, which didn't happen often. Someone suspended a trio of baskets from the ceiling. Someone thought, this will be useful. This was not supposed to happen. There are no bodies in the photographs, no living, no dead. Some went to Atlanta. Many went to Dallas. Does the man at the Camellia Grill still intone swing low as he froths the stuff of an omelet in a blender? The water didn't get that far, but the water got everywhere. Dogs barked on roofs. The hospitality of pineapple bedposts darkened. All those people in the Superdome while the roof began to lift, screeching, one imagines, the roof, the people. Those who were meager and those who were hefty, those who were, for the most part, one couldn't not notice, black, whose skin was, who were too poor or stubborn or frail or alone to go. What's left of theirs the part most deemed the best, the quarter they call French, the part most wanted left, and yet the lives that made it live have left. In their rooms, frames with nothing left, or the intention of rooms, planks held by nails and spaces, what all our houses are, just bones. This page may be too long to read and navigate comfortably. Please consider splitting content into sub-articles and/or condensing it. Yes, said the man with 3 sons. Yes, that is my house. Yes, I lived there. Yes, I told them we will never leave. Then the water came. Not much we could take but the dog. The littlest still talks about the book he was reading, left open, he thinks, on the bed. Water did this, gathered itself to itself, breathed fire, breathed water, breathed a wind that lifted lives and set them down some other place. For the one who left, this bed is a dead link. He's too busy greeting shoppers in Texas to see it on a wall or on the web. This was not decadence, a canopy of ash. It was where he fell at the end of the day or fucked with lucky. The image vanished from the frame was tacky. Who's said that? Who's to say what anyone would say after that? Words show how flat they always were. What's the point? What's left is not what was, minus what's gone. The room you spent a lifetime setting up and settling into settles a little more daily without you. You have fled to a wind-whipped stadium, to a suit inside a shelter, to higher ground, to where the jobs are, to a U-sized space to lie in, to a flame that makes you ash enough to fill a coffee can, if that. Just the other day this was all yours. You tossed your jacket on the chair back, winced into a plum. Google Polidori images. The screen fills. Pick one, click, make it bigger. 2 matching frames, Baroque corners. A chandelier, the bulbs lifted like wicks. A sandal, a car mat, the debris black. The caption is an address. Around the corner, someone might still live, or might again live. In between, a banishment, another place, another kind of time. No place like home. Before appears in Technicolor. A girl home from school slams the door, angry in a minor way the future won't permit her. No one notices the wallpaper, the 70s flock thick as mildew, as if in ironic foreshadowing of what water will do. Only after is this called before. After walking past the wreck enough times, walking past the gap, what's left to remember? This becomes what life is, not what it was. Google Maps. Enter the address. Click on the little orange man. Drag me to the map. Lift. It feels like lifting, all in the wrist. Set him down there. There is a field and a bridge, the letter A in a red bulb in the field. Then black. Wait a bit. The image changes. A sidewalk, a driveway in hot grass. Where a house was, a patch barren of grass. A shadow of a tree across the barren patch. Sometimes of year there might be chicory. This might have been a dream they never finished. The pavement cracked, the long grass. It all comes back except what doesn't. Except a year passes and more, and next time, next door, there's a house with a fence, a fresh driveway. Beside it, the pavement still cracked. Numerals that were the address sprayed across the cracks, an A in a bulb in a field. Floating there above the lawn, not grass, lawn's back again. It even casts a shadow. This is where the room sank into itself for months until he came to take the shot. It didn't wait. He waited, ate, slept, lived a life. By then the walls alive with what came after, all the things we do not see grown large enough to lace the walls, the brown, the gray, the black still in his lungs, his pace still slowed by where he was. Next door, iron screens across the doors, and on the pole out front a bent sign, drug-free. Zone is the word you can't see. A black bin left out. Once a week a truck picks up what's in there and continues down the road. Where someone had the trust to set a life down here, it stops to take what they didn't want. Not far off, a tall wall. Behind it, the water. When you pull out and out, the A is still there, the bulb as large as New Orleans. It must be quiet nights with all the space around. So that's from Long Exposure. And now I'm going to read a few discrete, shorter poems. This one is called Café du Monde. It's a poem that I wrote before I started the Polidori project, but it touches on New Orleans and a trip that I made there a number of years ago. So I thought I would read that as a transition to then reading some poems from a page from The Wonders of Life on Earth. So this is Café du Monde. Years ago, we left late winter for incipient azalea blooms and that river, smaller than imagination and muddier. Muddy as the coffee ground with chicory and frothed with milk and poured for us to drink alongside that selfsame river, upon which so much depended. Though the levee was so high we had to climb the stairs to find it there, that slow gray going somewhere. Cranked open back home, the canister of coffee emanated there, the crinch of our sandals on the powdered sugar floor, the damp curl of hair. It didn't taste the same, though when that can ran out, we ordered more and more until the river spilled. Then we ordered more again. The New Orleans of the mind now lives behind a scrim, but still the croak of a fogey's when the saints come marching in makes its way across. Meanwhile, really, whatever goes on down there, for whoever's left and whoever's come to see what's left. Up here, it's about to be winter again. In a vacant lot, beside concrete steps that rise 5 times, then end without an edifice, a little chicory still blooms, blue as nothing. And I don't feel I have to say that much about this book because Margaret introduced it very well. So thank you again for that introduction, and thanks to Margaret and Carol and Deanna and everyone involved with TREE for making this possible. I know how much work it is to organize events. I know from experience it's a lot of work, so thank you, and thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to be reading with everyone who's reading tonight. So this is Awake. It seems small enough, mint contained in pots to stop the spread. A hedge offered an entry, a maze, a prize. In patches, branches tufted as though someone had forgotten shears or what they were for. No chance of a glimpse from up, of in. A rasp ratcheted a notch. From far off a name was called, not mine. There's a recurring title in this book, Life of the Mind. So I'm going to read 4 Life of the Mind poems and 1 other poem. The Life of the Mind ones are sort of scattered throughout the manuscript as a kind of spine that I hope holds the other meanders together. This poem is set in the Jardin des Plantes in Paris, where what is arguably the world's oldest public zoo is housed. Life of the Mind wanders. A wrecked edifice wavers in a puddle, shoes in gravel, the leather sucking water. There is beauty everywhere in this city, history everywhere, a pit that held a bear before the war. Most cut through on their way from the Gare d'Austerlitz to work. The crêpes have been stacked. Jars of Nutella fog the glass. That thing at the center, a monumental cube, not forever but millennial, soon gone. Its inner sand does not run. Cropped limbs and statues, months before the chestnut trees let rise their rose plumes. Apollo could not take her, she was already other. Somewhere a turnstile, the great apes, the great cats. It is almost yesterday. Sometimes a little rain falls through. A labyrinth in which it's difficult to lose oneself. Along the Seine in summer for a month, there is a beach. Life of the Mind, Task. This bougainvillea on latticework is after a bougainvillea on latticework outside a restaurant beside an interstate in San Clemente, California, where, on the way to San Diego for the zoo, on the 4th of July, we ate sandwiches whose fillings I've forgotten. If a word could meet that gathering of stones around a lack of water, a fidget of leaves, if it could be that fidget of leaves. This beach, surprise, required not a little effort. The mechanism brings the water back and back again. If it could keep the cat trembling at sparrows in her harness, the cat in the earth years now nourishing the lilac, keep the lilac from the storm. Don't pocket any of the agates, please. It took a childhood of vacations to amass them. Cuttings nabbed when Grandma died, Virginia creeper and clematis, though the mock orange went when they felled the house. If it could stop all this from folding into an origami swan, a clot of lint in a washed pocket. Over there, still wild, that blackish mass must be winter conifers, though perhaps wild's the intention. The name a nail, the thing held there a while its counterpart goes on and dies. Continuing with the art-making motif, this poem is in two parts, the first of which is, or draws upon imagery of cave paintings, and the second of which draws upon the work of the glass artist Dale Chihuly. There's an exhibition of his work on in Montreal right now, and it's quite spectacular and jubilant. What art? When they made plains of the walls, they enacted a capture. Where stone-jutted haunches bulged, a dab of color meant the hide of a beast, meant meat would arrive and be eaten, meant thanks for flesh eaten. What if this were leisure? This is how the antelope ran, all legs in air, its hair the color of this dye we made. We make other things of things. A chandelier not meant to be lit, brainchild of a half-blind man from Tacoma who witnessed Venice, a peacock showing off, anemones in tidal pools. What use? Use. Life of the mind, constellations. She kept sitting, the lady in the chair, her name what a snake would say. A day of tears at school when I was sent down the hall to wash my face, a frail light strained through milky glass toward the stack of paper towels. Tithonus aged to a grasshopper, he scared me too, and the octopus on television playing fiddle, it was all wrong. It went on, the universe, no edge that was a shell that held us in. The stitched stars beside the lamb, the stitched stars on the Christmas cedars, filled with years. The slices narrow, time thinned to translucence. A tender oblong of gum from Japan my brother opened at age 5, careful to preserve the wrapper's picture of a bear's face. Wet it and it sticks to you. Not everything. Just the vast-eyed cat on my wall, just the face, not a face, in the chair, just the tall dark of the basement when I was not there. And I'll finish with Life of the Mind, Night. Yes, this vessel outstreams fate. This might be the Nile or another mouth. We gather on the deck between above and under, all the unimagined constellations. The steamer forges, blue goes the owl and the ticking bats, churning where the river meets the sea. The votive dragon, phoenix stitched of silk and not of fire on the water locomotive, and the dog star and the Isle of Dogs, and heaven upon the waters. Thank you.